Good morning, Philadelphia Graveyard and History. Today we are at Montgomery County Cemetery in Norristown, Pennsylvania. We are visiting the grave of Major General Winfield Scott Hancock. And he is buried in this mausoleum along with his daughter. Winfield Scott Hancock was born on February 14th, 1824. He died on February 9th, 1886. He was a United States Army officer and a Democratic nominee for President of the United States in 1880. He served with distinction in the Army for 4 decades, including service in the Mexican-American War and as a Union general in the American Civil War. Known to his Army colleagues as Hancock the Superb, he was noted in particular for his leadership at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. His military service continued after the Civil War, as Hancock participated in the military reconstruction of the South and the Army's presence at the western frontier. Hancock's reputation as a war hero at Gettysburg, combined with his status as a Unionist and a supporter of states' rights, made him a potential presidential candidate. When the Democrats nominated him for president in 1880, he ran a strong campaign, but was narrowly defeated by Republican James A. Garfield. Hancock's last public service involved the oversight of President Ulysses S. Grant's funeral procession in 1885. He was a major general in charge of the Army 2nd Corps of the Army of the Potomac. Participated in the Mexican-American War, Civil War battles, the Battle of Williamsburg, Malvern Hill, Antietam, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, Battle of the Wilderness, Cold Harbor, Spotsylvania Courthouse, Winfield Scott Hancock was named after prominent Union General Winfield Scott, who was most famous during the War of 1812. He was educated at Norristown Academy and then Norristown Public Schools in the 1830s. In 1840, Joseph Fornance, a local congressman, nominated Hancock to the United States Military Academy at West Point. His progress at West Point was average. He graduated 18th out of 25 in 1844 and was assigned to the infantry. He was commissioned a brevet second lieutenant in the 6th U.S. Infantry Regiment and initially was stationed in Indian Territory in the Red River Valley. Upon the outbreak of war with Mexico in 1846, Hancock worked to secure himself a place at the front. Initially assigned to recruiting duties in Kentucky, he proved so inept at signing up soldiers that his superiors were reluctant to release him from the post. In July 1847, however, Hancock was permitted to join his regiment in Pueblo, Mexico, where they made up a part of the army led by his namesake, Winfield Scott. Scott's army moved further inland from Pueblo unopposed and attacked Mexico City from the south. During the campaign in 1847, Hancock first encountered battle at Churubusco. He was appointed a brevet first lieutenant for gallant and meritorious service in these actions. Hancock was wounded in the knee at Churubusco and developed a fever. After the final victory, Hancock remained in Mexico with the 6th Infantry until the Treaty of Peace was signed in 1848. Marriage and peacetime. Hancock served in a number of assignments as an Army quartermaster and adjutant, mostly in Fort Snelling, Minnesota, and St. Louis, Missouri. It was in St. Louis that he met Elmira Allie Russell, and they were married on January 24th, 1850. Allie gave birth to 2 children, Russell in 1850 and Ada in 1857. But both children died before their parents. As I said, Ada is buried here in the mausoleum with the general. Elmira, his wife, and son Russell are buried at St. Bonaventure Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. Hancock was promoted to captain in 1855 and assigned to Fort Myers, Florida. He was eventually transferred a numerous amount of times, finally being stationed in Southern California in November 1858. He remained there, joined by his wife and children, until the Civil War broke out in 1861, serving as a captain and assistant quartermaster under future Confederate General Albert Sidney Johnston. In California, Hancock became friendly with a number of Southern officers, most significantly Lewis A. Armstead of Virginia. At the outbreak of the Civil War, Armstead and the other Southerners left to join the Confederate States Army, while Hancock remained in the service of the United States. When Armstead left, he turned to Hancock and said, "You will never know what this is costing me, but goodbye, goodbye." Joining the Army of the Potomac, Hancock returned east to assume quartermaster's duties for the rapidly growing Union Army, but was quickly promoted to brigadier general on September 23, 1861, and given an infantry brigade to command in the division of General William F. Baldy Smith, Army of the Potomac. He earned his superb nickname in the Peninsula Campaign in 1862 by leading a critical counterattack at the Battle of Williamsburg. Army Commander Major General George B. McClellan telegraphed Washington that Hancock was superb today. At the Battle of Antietam, Hancock assumed command of the 1st Division, 2nd Corps, following the mortal wounding of Major General Israel B. Richardson in the horrific fighting at Bloody Lane. He was promoted to Major General of Volunteers on November 29, 1862. He led his division in the disastrous attack on Marye's Heights in the Battle of Fredericksburg the following month and was wounded in the abdomen. At the Battle of Chancellorsville, his division covered Major General Joseph Hooker's withdrawal, and Hancock was wounded again. His corps commander, Major General Darius N. Couch, transferred out of the Army of the Potomac in protest of the actions Hooker took in the battle, and Hancock assumed command of the 2nd Corps. which he would lead until shortly before the war's end. Gettysburg. On July 2nd, Hancock's 2nd Corps was positioned on Cemetery Ridge. In one famous incident, he sacrificed a regiment, the 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment, by ordering it to advance and charge a Confederate brigade 4 times its size, causing the Minnesotans to suffer 87% casualties. While costly, this sacrifice brought time to organize the defensive lines and save the day for the Union Army. On July 3rd, Hancock defended his position on Cemetery Ridge and thus bore the brunt of Pickett's charge. During the massive Confederate artillery bombardment that preceded the infantry assault, Hancock was prominent on horseback, reviewing and encouraging his troops. When one of his subordinates protested, "General, the Corps commander ought not to risk his life in that way," Hancock is said to have replied, "There are times when a Corps commander's life does not count." During the infantry assault, his old friend, Brigadier General Lewis A. Armstead, now a brigade commander in General George Pickett's division, was wounded and died 2 days later. Hancock could not meet with his friend because he had just been wounded himself. A severe wound caused by a bullet striking the pommel of his saddle, entering his inner right thigh, along with wood fragments and a large bent nail. Helped from his horse by his aides, and with a tourniquet applied to staunch the bleeding, he removed the saddle nail himself, and, mistaking its source, remarked, "They must be hard up for ammunition when they throw such shot as that." News of Armstead's mortal wounding was brought to Hancock by a member of his staff, Captain Henry H. Bigham. Despite his pain, Hancock refused to evacuate to the rear until the battle was resolved. One military historian wrote, "No other Union general at Gettysburg dominated men by the sheer force of their presence more completely than Hancock." Another wrote, "His tactical skill had won him the quick admiration of adversaries who had come to know him as the thunderbolt of the Army of the Potomac." Hancock suffered from the effects of his Gettysburg wound for the rest of the war. After recuperating in Norristown, he performed recruiting services over the winter and returned in the spring to field command of the 2nd Corps for General Ulysses S. Grant's 1864 Overland Campaign, but he never regained full mobility and his former youthful energy. Hancock was promoted to Brigadier General in the regular Army effective August 12, 1864, and was promoted again to Brevet Major General in the regular Army for his service at Spotsylvania effective March 13, 1865. Post-war military service. Execution of Lincoln assassination conspirators. At the close of the war, Hancock was assigned to supervise the execution of the conspirators in the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln had been assassinated on April 14, 1865, and by May 9th of that year, a military commission had been convened to try the accused. The actual assassin, John Wilkes Booth, was already dead, but the trial of his co-conspirators proceeded quickly, resulting in convictions. President Andrew Johnson ordered the executions be carried out on July 7th. Although he was reluctant to execute some of the less culpable conspirators, especially Mary Surratt, Hancock carried out his orders, later writing that every soldier is bound to act as I did under similar circumstances. Service on the plains. After the executions, Hancock was assigned to command the newly organized Middle Military Department, headquartered in Baltimore. In 1866, on Grant's recommendation, Hancock was promoted to Major General and transferred later that year to command of the Military Department of Missouri, which included the states of Missouri and Kansas and territories of Colorado and New Mexico. He was later transferred to the 5th Military District covering Texas and Louisiana. Almost immediately upon arriving, Hancock integrated himself with the secessionist white population by issuing his General Order Number 40 on November 29, 1867. In that order, written while traveling to New Orleans, Hancock expressed sentiments in support of President Andrew Johnson's policies, writing that if the residents of the district conduct themselves peacefully and the civilian officials perform their duties, then the military power should cease to lead and the civil administration assume its natural and rightful dominion. The order continued. The great principles of American liberty are still the lawful inheritance of its people and ever shall be. The right of trial by jury, the habeas corpus, liberty of the press, freedom of speech, the natural rights of person, and the rights of property must be preserved. Free institutions, while they are essential to the prosperity and happiness of the people, always furnish the strongest inducements to peace and order. Hancock's General Order Number 40 was quickly condemned by Republicans in Washington, especially the radicals, while President Johnson wholeheartedly approved. Hancock soon put his words into action, refusing local Republican politicians' requests to use his power to overturn elections and court verdicts, while also letting it be known that open insurrection will be suppressed. Hancock's popularity within the Democratic Party grew to the extent that he was considered a potential presidential nominee for that party in the 1868 election. In 1872, General George Gordon Meade died, leaving Hancock as the Army's senior Major General. This entitled him to a more prominent command, and President Grant assigned him command of the Division of the Atlantic, headquartered at Fort Columbus on Governor's Island, New York City. All the while Hancock was posted in New York, he did his best to keep his political ambitions alive. He received some votes at the Democrats' 1876 convention. 1880 Democratic Convention. Hancock's name had been proposed several times for the Democratic nomination for president, but he never captured a majority of the delegates. In 1880, however, Hancock's chances improved. President Hayes had promised not to run for a second term, and the previous Democratic nominee, Samuel Tilden, declined to run due to poor health. While the Democratic Convention assembled in Cincinnati in June 1880, Hancock led on the first ballot, but did not have a majority. By the second ballot, Hancock received the requisite 2/3, and William Hayden English of Indiana was chosen as his running mate. The Republicans nominated James A. Garfield, a congressman from Ohio, and a skillful politician, as well as a former general in the Civil War. Practical differences between the two parties were few, and the Republicans were reluctant to attack Hancock personally because of his heroic reputation. In the end, the Democrats and Hancock failed to carry any of the northern states they had targeted, with the exception of New Jersey. Hancock lost the election to Garfield. Garfield polled only 39,213 more votes than Hancock, the popular vote being 4,453,295 for Garfield and 4,414,082 for Hancock. The electoral count, however, had a much larger spread, as Garfield pulled 214 electoral votes to Hancock's 155. Garfield would be shot 4 months into his presidency on July 2nd, 1881, and would die on September 19th, 1881. Hancock took his electoral defeat in stride and attended Garfield's inauguration. Following the election, Hancock carried on as commander of the Division of the Atlantic and was elected president of the National Rifle Association in 1881, explaining that the object of the NRA is to increase the military strength of the country by making skills in the use of arms as prevalent as it was in the days of the Revolution. He was Commander-in-Chief of the Military Order of the Loyal Legion of the United States, a veterans organization from 1879 until his death in 1886. Hancock died in 1886 at Governor's Island while still in command of the Military Division of the Atlantic, the victim of an infected carbuncle complicated by diabetes. And he is buried here in this mausoleum at Montgomery Cemetery in West Norriton Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, near Norristown. His last public act performed by Hancock was his oversight of the funeral of President Ulysses S. Grant in 1885 and organizing Grant's 9-mile funeral procession through New York City. Hancock's legacy. An equestrian statue of General Hancock sits on East Cemetery Hill on the Gettysburg battlefield. An equestrian statue located at Pennsylvania Avenue and 7th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., and an equestrian statue atop the Smith Memorial Arch in Fairmount Park, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which we will cover that Memorial Arch in a later video. A Pennsylvania historical marker was dedicated on September 11, 1847, along Bethlehem Pike, Route 309, just south of US 202, where Hancock was born. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Help it grow. We cover mostly Philadelphia area history, military history, Medal of Honor recipients, presidents, governors. We're eventually going to do some mayors of Philadelphia. on a new playlist coming soon. And the next video will be even more exciting, because I found here in Norristown a member of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry, the famed regiment known from the Battle of Fort Wagner, portrayed in the movie Glory. And there is a survivor of that battle from that regiment buried here in Norristown. And that will be our next video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, help the channel grow. Thank you.